the night I cried because of my English. I want to tell you about a night I have never forgotten. It was a Tuesday. I remember because Tuesdays always felt like the hardest day of the week. Not Monday, when you still have the energy of the weekend. Not Friday, when everything feels possible again. Tuesday, the middle of everything. The day when you realize the week is long and you are tired already. It was a Tuesday night, and I was sitting alone at a small wooden table. The lamp beside me was too bright. It made the room feel smaller than it was. I had a notebook open in front of me. I had a pen in my hand, and I was crying. Not small, quiet tears, not the kind you can blink away. Real crying, the kind that comes from somewhere deep inside you. The kind that surprises you because you did not know it was coming. I was crying because of English. And if you have ever felt what I felt that night, then this speech is for you. Let me tell you what happened that day. I had been studying English for 8 months. 8 months of lessons, of vocabulary lists, of grammar exercises, of watching English films with subtitles, of repeating sentences out loud in my room when nobody could hear me. 8 months of work, 8 months of effort, 8 months of believing that one day it would all click. And then that Tuesday, something happened that broke me. It was a small thing. That is the painful part. It was not a big, dramatic failure. It was not a failed exam or a terrible job interview. It was small. I was in a coffee shop. A woman sat down at the table next to me. She smiled at me. She said something. I did not understand. I smiled back. I said, "Sorry, could you say that again?" She repeated it. I still did not understand. I felt my face go red. I felt my throat tighten. I said, "I am sorry, my English is not so good." She smiled kindly and looked back at her coffee. And that was it. That was the whole moment. 30 seconds, maybe less. But I carried it all the way home. I carried it up the stairs. I carried it to my table. And then I sat down and I cried. I cried because of everything that 30 seconds represented. I cried because I had worked so hard, and it felt like it was not working. I cried because the woman in the coffee shop had been kind, and somehow her kindness made it worse. If she had been impatient, I could have been angry. But she was kind, and I had nothing to do with my pain except feel it. I cried because I did not know how many more months it would take. I did not know if I was doing it right. I did not know if I was smart enough, or young enough, or if my brain was too slow, or if English was simply not something I was meant to learn. I cried because I was tired of feeling stupid. I was a smart person in my own language. In my language, I could argue. I could be funny. I could say exactly what I meant with exactly the right words at exactly the right moment. But in English, I felt like a child. A small, slow, confused child. And that night, I let myself feel all of that. I am telling you this because I need you to know something. That night on the table was not the end of my story. It was the middle. And maybe right now, you are in the middle of your story too. Maybe you have had your own Tuesday night. Maybe you have had your own moment in a coffee shop, or a classroom, or an office, or a phone call that made you feel small. Maybe you have cried too. Maybe you have not cried, but you have wanted to. Maybe you have felt that heavy feeling in your chest when English is too hard and you are too tired and it all seems impossible. If you have felt that, I want you to stay with me, because what I learned after that night changed everything, and I want to give it to you. The first thing I want to say is this: the pain you feel is real. Do not let anyone tell you it is not. Some people will say, it is just a language. They will say, do not be so emotional about it. They will say, just practice more and you will be fine. These people mean well, but they do not understand what it feels like to lose your voice. And that is what learning a new language actually is. It is losing your voice, the voice you have had your whole life, the voice that knows how to be warm and funny and precise and powerful. In your first language, your voice is fully yours. It fits you perfectly. It expresses everything you are. And then you step into a new language, and suddenly your voice does not work anymore. You reach for a word and it is not there. You try to explain something and it comes out wrong. You want to say something beautiful and it comes out like a beginner. That feeling is a real loss. Grieve it if you need to, but then keep going. Think about a musician, a professional pianist who has played beautifully for 20 years. Now imagine that pianist picking up a violin for the first time. Suddenly, all that skill, all that training, all that musical knowledge means almost nothing. The hands do not know where to go. The sounds that come out are nothing like the sounds inside the musician's head. The musician knows exactly how the piece should sound, but the instrument does not obey. Does that mean the musician is not talented? Does that mean the music inside them has disappeared? Of course not. The music is still there. The talent is still there. The knowledge is still there. But the body needs time to learn the new instrument. You are a pianist picking up a violin. The music inside you is still there. Your intelligence is still there. Your personality is still there. Your thoughts are still deep and complex and interesting. English is just a new instrument, and new instruments take time. I want to tell you about a man named Solomon. He was 41 years old when he moved to a new country. He had been a teacher in his home country. He had taught history for 15 years. He knew so much. He had read hundreds of books. He had stood in front of classrooms full of students and talked for hours without notes. He was confident. He was respected. And then he moved countries, and suddenly he was nobody. Not because he changed, but because nobody could hear who he was. He went to a government office to fill out some forms. The woman behind the desk spoke quickly. He did not understand. He asked her to repeat. She sighed. He could hear her impatience. He signed forms he did not fully understand. He went home feeling invisible. For 3 months, Solomon felt invisible. He said it was the most painful experience of his life, worse than any physical pain. The pain of being invisible when you know you are not nothing. But Solomon did something important. He did not stop. He went to a local community class every Tuesday and Thursday evening. He was the oldest person in the class. Everyone else was younger. Some of them were much better than him. He did not care. He sat in the front row every single class. He asked questions that some of the other students thought were simple. He did not care about that either. He spoke English badly in that class for 2 years. And then one day, his teacher asked him a question about history. And Solomon began to speak. And he spoke for 5 minutes. and the whole class was silent, not because his English was perfect, but because what he said was extraordinary. The ideas were so clear, the examples were so vivid, the passion was so real. And his teacher looked at him and said, "Solomon, you are a historian. Do not ever forget that." That day, Solomon went home and he called his daughter. He said, "I think I am coming back." He did not mean coming back to the country. He meant coming back to himself. You will come back to yourself too. I promise you that. But you have to keep going through the difficult part. You have to walk through the valley before you reach the other side. And the valley is real. The valley is the part where you feel stupid. The valley is the coffee shop moment. The valley is the Tuesday night with the lamp and the tears. You cannot go around the valley. You have to go through it. But here is what I need you to understand. The valley is not a sign that you are failing. The valley is a sign that you are doing it. Only the people who are truly trying ever find themselves in the valley. The people who gave up never even got there. Let me talk about something that many English learners do that makes everything harder. They listen to the wrong voice. You know the voice I mean. It is the voice in your head, the one that talks to you all day long, the one that says things like, "You will never be fluent," the one that says, "You are too old for this," the one that says, "Look at the other students. They are so much better," the one that says, "You made the same mistake again," the one that says, "You have been studying for so long and you are still not good enough." That voice, that terrible, relentless, unkind voice. Do you know what I want to say to that voice? I want to say, "Who asked you?" That voice is not telling you the truth. That voice is not your friend. That voice is fear pretending to be wisdom. Fear says things that sound logical. Fear says things that sound like they are protecting you. Fear says, if you try and fail, it will hurt, so do not try. Fear says, if you speak and make a mistake, people will judge you, so do not speak. Fear says, you are not ready yet, so wait. Keep waiting. Wait forever. Fear will always find a reason to wait. And while you are waiting, your life is happening. Your English is not improving. Your confidence is staying small. And fear is very pleased with itself. The next time that voice starts talking, try something different. Instead of listening to it, talk back to it. Not angrily, calmly. Say to it, "Thank you, I hear you, and I am going to try anyway." That is not blind optimism. That is not pretending the difficulty is not real. That is courage. Courage is not the absence of fear. You know this already. Courage is doing the thing while the fear is still there. Every time you open your mouth and speak English when you are afraid, you are being courageous. Every single time. It does not matter if the sentence is perfect. It does not matter if you get the tense wrong. It does not matter if someone has to ask you to repeat yourself. You opened your mouth. You tried. That is courage. Do not let anyone take that from you. Not even the voice in your own head. I want to tell you about a woman named Priya. She came from a family where education was everything. Her parents had sacrificed so much for her to study. She carried that weight every day. When she started learning English as an adult, she was terrified of making mistakes. Not because mistakes embarrassed her, but because mistakes felt like a betrayal of everyone who had believed in her. So she did not speak. In classes, she stayed silent. In social situations, she smiled and nodded. She understood more than people thought, but she would not speak, because speaking meant risking a mistake, and a mistake meant failure, and failure meant letting everyone down. One day, her teacher sat down with her after class. The teacher said, "Priya, I notice you never speak in class." Priya looked at her hands. Her teacher said, "Can I tell you something? The students who make the most mistakes in my class are always the ones who improve the most. Always, without exception. Because making a mistake means you tried something. It means you reached for something slightly beyond your current ability. And reaching is how you grow. Staying silent is safe. But silence does not teach you anything." Priya looked up. The teacher said, "I want you to make 10 mistakes in class next week. Not 0 mistakes. 10. Can you do that for me?" Priya almost laughed. She said, "You want me to make mistakes on purpose?" The teacher said, "I want you to speak enough that you make 10 mistakes. That is all. The speaking is the goal. The mistakes are just what happens on the way." The next week, Priya made 7 mistakes. The week after, she made 11. By the end of the month, she was one of the most talkative students in the class. Not the most accurate, not the most fluent, but the most willing to try. And within 6 months, she had improved more than anyone else in that class. Not because she was the most talented, because she was the most willing to be wrong. Being willing to be wrong is one of the most powerful things you can do as a language learner. Say that to yourself right now. Being willing to be wrong is powerful, not shameful, powerful. Now I want to talk to you about time, because time is something that trips up almost every English learner. We live in a world that celebrates fast results. You can order food in 10 minutes. You can learn a skill online in an afternoon. You can get information in 3 seconds. Everything is fast. Everything is immediate. And then you sit down to learn English, and suddenly nothing is fast. Progress is slow. Sometimes it is invisible. You study for weeks, and you cannot feel any difference. And you start to wonder if something is wrong with you. Nothing is wrong with you. Language learning is simply not fast. It was never fast. It will never be fast. And that is okay. That is not a failure of modern life. That is just the nature of how human brains work. Think about a river. A river does not carve a canyon in a day. Not in a year. Not in 10 years. A canyon is made by a river flowing over the same rock for thousands of years. Day after day. Year after year. The water looks at the rock, and the rock looks unaffected. Nothing seems to be happening. But under the surface, the rock is changing. Slowly, invisibly, molecule by molecule. And then one day, you look, and there is a canyon. Something enormous and beautiful has been carved by something patient and persistent. Your English is that canyon. Every lesson is water on rock. Every conversation is water on rock. Every word you look up, every sentence you practice, every podcast you listen to on your way to work, water on rock. You cannot see it working, but it is working. It is always working. Scientists who study language learning have found something fascinating. They found that learners often feel like they are not improving right before a major leap forward. The brain consolidates new information during quiet periods. During the times when you feel stuck, your brain is actually organizing everything you have learned. It is like building a house. Before the house looks like a house, it is just a foundation and some walls. It does not look like much. It might look like nothing at all. But everything is being built. Everything is in place. And then one day the roof goes on, and suddenly there is a house. Your fluency is that house. Trust the construction, even when all you can see is the foundation. I want to speak to something specific now. I want to talk about the moment when you understand something, but cannot say it. This is one of the most frustrating experiences in language learning. You hear a question in English. You know the answer in your mind. You can feel the answer. You can see it clearly. But when you open your mouth, the words do not come, or they come out in the wrong order, or the right word disappears, and you are left with a gap where the word should be. This experience has a name. Linguists call it the silent period, or sometimes they call it the gap between receptive and productive language. Your receptive English is what you can understand. Your productive English is what you can say. Receptive always develops faster. Always. Your ears are learning faster than your mouth. This is completely normal. This is not a problem. This is exactly how language learning works. A baby understands language long before it can speak. For months, a baby listens. It watches faces. It hears the same sounds in different situations. It begins to connect sounds to meanings. And then one day, words begin to come, not perfectly, not all at once, but they come, and they come faster and faster, because all that listening was preparation. All that silence was not empty. It was full of learning that was happening below the surface. You are in that same process right now. Every English program you watch is filling you up. Every conversation you hear is teaching your brain the music of English. Every podcast, every song, every YouTube video, every overheard conversation on the bus, all of it is going in. All of it is being processed. All of it will come out one day. In your words, in your confidence, in your fluency, trust the process. The words are coming. Let me tell you about a man named James. He was from West Africa, and he had been living in England for 2 years. His English was functional. He could manage at work. He could buy things in shops. He could have basic conversations. But he could not express who he was. He was a storyteller in his culture. In his village, stories were how people connected with each other. Stories were how wisdom was passed from one generation to the next. James had hundreds of stories inside him, but in English, he could not tell them. The words were too simple. The language was too thin. He felt like a painter who had been given only one color. One evening, James went to a community event. There was a woman there who worked with refugees and immigrants. She asked him where he was from. He told her. She said, "Oh, I have always wanted to visit that part of the world. Tell me something about it." And something happened inside James. Something shifted, because she had asked him to tell her something, not to report a fact, not to answer a question, to tell her something. And James began to speak. His English was imperfect. Some sentences were awkward, some words were wrong, but his voice was alive, and the story he told her was beautiful. She leaned forward. She asked questions. She laughed at the right moments. She went quiet at the serious parts. When he finished, she said, "That is the most interesting story I have heard in years." James went home different that night. He understood something he had not understood before. The story is the power. The language is just the vehicle, and the vehicle does not need to be perfect. It just needs to move. Your story is the power. Your experience, your knowledge, your personality, your humor, your wisdom, that is the power. English is just the vehicle. Right now your vehicle has some dents. The engine is not always smooth. Sometimes it stalls, but it moves. And as long as it moves, the story can be told. Keep moving. I need to talk to you now about comparison, because comparison is one of the most destructive habits an English learner can have. And I know you do it. I know you look at other people in your class and think, why is this so easy for them? I know you watch someone speak fluent English and feel that ache in your chest. I know you think, if I had started younger, if I had had better teachers, if I had grown up watching English television. I know these thoughts, and I need you to hear me clearly. Those thoughts are liars, every single one of them. You do not know that person's story. You see their result. You do not see their struggle. You do not see the years they spent confused and frustrated. You do not see the nights they wanted to give up. You do not see the embarrassing moments they have never told anyone about. You see the smooth surface, but every smooth surface was once rough. Every fluent speaker was once a beginner. Every person who sounds natural in English once sounded exactly like you sound right now. The difference between them and you is not talent. The difference is time. And time is the one thing you can control. Give it time. Give yourself time. And stop comparing your beginning to someone else's middle. This is the most unfair comparison you can make. Imagine watching a marathon. You arrive at the 20-kilometer mark. You see one runner crossing that mark looking strong and fast. You see another runner just arriving at the starting line, lacing up their shoes. Would you say the second runner is losing? Of course not. They just started. They are at a completely different stage of the same race. You are not behind the fluent speaker. You are at a different stage. And every stage is valid. Every stage is part of the journey. Every stage deserves respect. The only comparison that is useful is this one. Who were you in English 1 month ago? 1 year ago? What could you do then that you cannot do now? Measure yourself against yourself. Only against yourself. That measurement will always show you progress. Even when progress feels invisible, it is there. Compare last year's you to this year's you. And then let that comparison encourage you, not discourage you. Let it show you how far you have come, not how far you still have to go. I want to talk about embarrassment now, because embarrassment stops more people from improving their English than anything else. More than lack of vocabulary, more than grammar confusion, more than limited practice opportunities. Embarrassment, the fear of sounding stupid, the fear of being judged, the fear of that slight pause in a native speaker's eyes when they have to process what you said. That fear, I know it intimately, and I want to help you release it. Here is something important about embarrassment. It feels enormous from the inside, but from the outside, it is almost invisible. When you make a mistake in English, the moment that feels catastrophic to you is barely noticed by the other person. Think about the last time someone spoke to you in your language with an accent or made a small grammar mistake. Did you judge them? Did you think they were stupid? Of course not. You probably felt warmth towards them. You probably felt admiration because you knew they were trying. And trying in a second language is impressive. It is always impressive. Native English speakers are almost universally impressed by people who are learning their language. Not critical, impressed, because most of them only speak one language, and they know it. They know that learning another language is hard. They know that it requires dedication and courage and patience. When you speak imperfect English to a native speaker, they are not looking at your mistakes. They are looking at your effort. And effort is the most attractive thing in the world. There was a professor I once heard speak. He was famous. He had written important books. He had given lectures at universities all over the world, and his English had an accent, a strong accent. He made grammatical errors sometimes. He occasionally had to pause and search for the right word. And when he did those things, the audience did not roll their eyes. The audience leaned forward because what he was saying was so interesting, so profound, so full of ideas that nobody cared about the accent. Nobody cared about the grammar. They cared about the ideas. They cared about the person delivering them. Your accent is not a barrier to being heard. Your grammar is not a barrier to being valued. Your ideas are the thing. Your character is the thing. Your English is just the frame around the painting. And people look at the painting, not the frame. Now let me say something to you about the days when you want to stop, because they will come. If they have not come already, they will come. There will be a day when you open your English book and you feel nothing. Not motivation, not curiosity, just tiredness. There will be a day when you cannot remember why you started. There will be a day when someone speaks to you and you feel just as confused as you did on your very first day. And on that day, a voice will say, maybe this is not for you. Maybe it is time to stop. And on that day, I want you to remember this. Do not make permanent decisions on temporary feelings. Tiredness is temporary. Confusion is temporary. Discouragement is temporary. Everything that makes you want to quit on a bad day is temporary. But the decision to quit would be permanent, and you would carry it with you. Not the failure of quitting, but the weight of the unlived possibility, the language you could have had, the conversations you could have had, the doors that could have opened. You would carry the weight of the door you chose not to walk through. And that weight is heavier than any tiredness. On the days when you want to stop, do not stop, but rest. There is a difference. Stopping is permanent. Resting is temporary. Close the book. Go for a walk. Watch something in English that you enjoy purely for the entertainment. Do not make it a lesson. Do not pause and study vocabulary. Just enjoy it. Let English wash over you without pressure. Let it be pleasant. Let it be a rest, not a battle. And then come back. come back the next day or the day after, but come back. Always come back. Because the people who become fluent are never the people who never felt like quitting. They are the people who felt like quitting and came back anyway. I want to share one more story with you. It is about a woman named Elena. She was in her late 30s. She had started learning English 5 times in her life. 5 times. She had studied for a few months, made progress, and then stopped for one reason or another. Life got busy. A job changed. A baby arrived. A family crisis happened. And each time she stopped, she felt guilty. And the guilt made it harder to start again, because starting again meant admitting that she had stopped. And she did not want to think about all the time she had lost. One day, a younger woman in her neighborhood told Elena that she had started learning English. Elena felt a familiar ache. She said, "I have tried so many times." The younger woman said, "What happened?" Elena told her. All 5 times, she expected sympathy. She expected the younger woman to say, "Oh, that is so hard." But instead, the younger woman said something that changed Elena. She said, "So you have not quit. You have just been on a very long pause." Elena laughed. A long pause. Yes, that was one way to look at it. The younger woman said, "What would happen if you unpaused?" Elena thought about it. She went home. She found an old English book she had used years ago. She opened it. She read one page, just one, and then she put it down. The next day, she read 2 pages. The day after, she found a class. She went. She was the oldest person there. She went back the next week, and the week after. That was 3 years ago. Elena now works part-time as an assistant in a school where many of the children do not speak English at home. She helps them. She talks to their parents. She helps translate when she can. She helps explain what the teachers are saying. She is not perfectly fluent. She still makes mistakes. But she is there. She is useful. She is connected. And when children in that school look at Elena, a woman who learned English as an adult, who stopped 5 times and started 6, they see that it is possible. Elena did not just learn English. She became proof that it is possible. You are becoming proof too. Every day that you continue, every lesson you sit through, every word you look up, every sentence you attempt, you are becoming proof that it is possible for your children, for your neighbors, for the person who will one day look at you and think, if they did it, maybe I can too. Go back to that Tuesday night. Go back to that small wooden table. Go back to the lamp that was too bright and the open notebook and the tears. I can tell you now what I could not see then. That night was not a failure. That night was a turning point. Because something important happens when you cry about something. It means you care about it deeply. You do not cry about things that do not matter. You cry about things that mean something to you. And the fact that my English made me cry meant that it mattered to me profoundly. It meant I wanted it desperately. And desperate desire, when you refuse to let it become despair, becomes the most powerful fuel in the world. Your desire to speak English is a gift, not a burden. It is evidence that you believe in a bigger future for yourself. It is evidence that you are not content to stay exactly as you are. It is evidence that you are brave enough to reach for something difficult and uncomfortable and uncertain because you believe the other side of that discomfort is worth it. And it is. I can tell you from the other side that it is absolutely worth it. Every Tuesday night is worth it. Every embarrassing moment in a coffee shop is worth it. Every lesson where you feel confused and slow and behind, all of it is worth it. You are not behind. You are on your way. There is a difference. Behind means you are losing a race. On your way means you are moving in the right direction. You are moving in the right direction. You have always been moving in the right direction. Every time you chose to continue was a step in the right direction. Every time you came back after stopping was a step in the right direction. Every imperfect sentence you have ever spoken out loud was a step in the right direction. Keep going, not for anyone else, not to impress anyone, not to prove anything to the person in the coffee shop, or the teacher who once doubted you, or the family member who said it was too hard. Keep going for yourself. Keep going for the version of you that is coming. The version of you that picks up the phone and speaks without fear. The version of you that tells a joke in English and makes someone laugh. The version of you that sits in a meeting and says exactly what you mean. The version of you that reads a book in English and loses yourself in it completely. The version of you that one day helps someone else who is sitting at their own small table under their own too bright lamp, crying their own tears over their own English. That version of you is coming. Keep the light on for them. They are on their way.